This episode of SwitchCast is produced by One Press L2P, our honored patron and Switch Knight.
Hey everyone, I'm KC.
And I'm Bill.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for the Switch enthusiast. And it is with a heavy heart I come to you today, not with your beloved JV, but with a almost as beloved friend of the podcast, someone that you guys might know a little more familiarly as RunJumpStomp.
Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
All right, I'm very thankful for you to come by and fill in for JV this week, as it's a really big week, and he's very frustrated that he wasn't able to make it here. And I've been meaning to have you on the show ever since you had me on your podcast.
All right, well, actually, that podcast has stopped,
Oh.
but that's okay. My name's Bill, a.k.a. RunJumpStomp. I am a podcaster and a Twitch streamer. You can find me at runjumpstomp.com or at twitch.tv/runjumpstomp. And I also have a Nintendo-themed podcast called SwitchCraft.
Very cool, yes. I think you were one of the first people I stopped by when I was the very early days of Switch podcasters, before the Switch even came out, and we were all just kind of like doing the rounds to all the other shows and saying hi. And it was a very small community back then, so... but since then, you've become a pretty regular member of the Discord chat too, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. You guys have a great Discord chat. There's always people in there to talk to about Nintendo stuff, and I just love jumping in there and being part of the conversation. It's a lot of fun.
What have you been streaming these days on the Twitch channel?
I just finished... I knew that ARMS was coming at the end of the week, so I wanted to play something small that I could get through. So I just finished playing Legend of Zelda on the NES Classic.
Oh, okay.
And I finished and defeated Ganon on Monday, and then I had to do a recording today with somebody, and then Friday I'm going to start streaming ARMS.
Very, very cool. I'm still waiting. I hope by the time JV gets back from his vacation, the NES Classic has arrived that we wanted to give out actually as a prize for that Mario Kart tournament we're still hoping to do as soon as the prize is in our hands.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, this is not just any episode, guys. This is the big E3. 2 out of 3 days down, basically. I guess you count 3 if you count Monday also, even though that was like 0 day.
Right.
And so we've had most, if not all, of the big announcements to go through. So we have a huge docket of stuff there. I think between the two of us, this is going to be a pretty jam-packed thing that we probably shouldn't waste too much time getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I did it all. I did an episode of SwitchCraft by myself going over my thoughts of E3, and that was 40 minutes by itself.
Okay. Yes.
So having two people to talk, it's gonna probably go pretty long.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so what was your, before we really get down to that though, what was your general vibe? Like, how do you feel so far with the overall performance of the E3's, Nintendo's E3 spotlight and all the announcements so far?
Well, without getting into too many specifics, I think that Nintendo did okay. I think they did well. And if you compare them to the others, I think that they did just as well as everybody else did, better than Sony. I think that the other... I found this E3 to be very kind of dull, almost. There wasn't that much stuff that I was super excited for or that was surprising.
Right. Yeah, that's the main thing. It was the lack of surprises that was very different than previous E3s that would usually, here's what the new system looks like. I mean, we had the new Microsoft system. I think that was the biggest reveal, even though people were pretty much expecting it to come out. There wasn't a surprise per se, but seeing it, the name, I guess the pricing and all that. So I think that was the most surprising thing of the entire E3. For me, maybe the Shadow of the Colossus remake might have been the coolest non-Nintendo thing announced there. But yeah, overall, everyone was just a solid showing, but no bombs, no game-changing, holy, mind-blowing surprises.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, there was a couple things, like when Microsoft said that that they were going to have backwards compatibility with the original Xbox, or that they were bringing back the original Xbox controller. Something that Nintendo announced that I'm sure that we will talk about today. That was a big surprise.
Yes.
So there were some surprises. It's just, I felt like we knew most of what was coming up already.
Yeah, I think that's a part and parcel with how Nintendo's been owning the messages throughout the year. I mean, we have now all these directs. They keep bringing out the biggest Nintendo reveal was last October. I mean, just revealing the Switch. That would be a bombshell that I think any other year they would have to have saved for E3, and maybe now it's that kind of thing that's, I feel, been having a very negative effect on game marketing in general, that everyone had to base all their marketing around E3, and now they've been drifting away from that, which is great because that means Nintendo was able to announce it then and announce other games beforehand and release them over time. But the side effect is, E3 loses all that kind of Christmas Eve luster.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo, if I can turn it into I can't believe I'm doing this, a sports metaphor, which is not something that I usually do, because I don't care about sports, but if I can turn it into a sports metaphor, is like, Nintendo, most of the time, what traditionally we've seen from E3 is the company comes out, they do a home run. Mm-hmm. Nintendo doesn't have to do home runs at E3 anymore, because they can do singles and doubles and triples all year long with their Nintendo Directs. And that really takes the pressure off of them. Mm-hmm. Now, other companies, they don't do Nintendo Directs, obviously, but they don't do a similar thing.
Right.
So they kind of feel like they have to come out. And that's why I think that Nintendo actually performed a little bit better, even though I said that they don't. I feel like they did do a little bit more because they announced some stuff before E3, and this is also the first time I think that we've ever had a console that was not announced at an E3.
Yeah, true.
At an E3, it's really weird.
That is weird. It was announced after last E3 and came out before this E3. That's really an insane pocket. Just totally dodged it. Didn't use any of them for hype or the competition of, the clash of E3 announcement.
And if you had asked me, a couple of years ago, would this ever happen? I would have said never.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But I think it's good for the industry overall that they're drifting away, and we'll start talking about all that stuff in just a minute. But let's warm up with a little bit of playtime and actually talk about what we've been playing.
All right.
Alright, so I got a message from one Brett Moser, who makes these AMIIBO cards I've always been talking about, and he sent me a sample. He sent me about 12 of these different cards here or so, and they are just little laminated, kind of like bookmark size things, and they have the pictures of the different AMIIBO characters on them, and they have backings to show the different games they come from, which set they're from, and they have within them the chip or whatever, the thing that, what do they call that? The UFC reader? Is that what it's called? NFC reader, that's the one. The NFC reader, little disc in there, and you can just hover them over your AMIIBO reader on your Switch controllers, and they work just like that. And I've always said I have no place to put AMIIBO statuettes. I do not. I mean, I think they're cool, but I just think that, I play so much on the go that I would never use the actual statuettes. I don't want to have these bulky things in my bag. So he sent me these ones, and they work, and they're pretty cool. So I'm going to leave a link to this guy's page here. I'm also going to put some pictures up on the show notes. And I'm going to put them on Twitter and on Facebook, just so you guys can take a look at them. And if you feel that they're the right price for you, you might want to pick some of these up. I've been using them for a couple of days. This is the first time I've ever used AMIIBO, actually. Have you? Are you an AMIIBO guy?
My desk is littered with AMIIBO.
Okay.
I've got a 9-year-old, and so I have an excuse that I can be like, hey, this is really cool. Let's pick up this one and let's grab that one. And so Like, just looking at my desk right now, I've got a Bowser, 8-bit Link, Sonic, Rob, Ryu, 2 Links, Waluigi, Wario, and another Link, and a Splatoon,
a
Splatoon guy. Yeah, so it's all over my desk. We love these things. They're cool.
What games have you used them for? Because I've been using this now for Zelda. It's the only one I've tried it out on. And it's kind of cool. You know, you get those little, you could use it once a day and get the little package of supplies basically from the different ones. And that's pretty cool if you just want to stock up on the, like the food items or the, you know, wood or whatever other little things and the plants that you might want instead of having to hunt them down. It's a nice treat. I probably wouldn't abuse it too much, but it is a cool little thing. Oh, and the Epona, which I guess is probably the big one, just being able to access and get Epona for your horse collection is pretty cool. Have you used it for other games?
I've used it in Mario Kart. I have the Pac-Man amiibo, and in Mario Kart it unlocks like different outfits for your Mii to wear. And the Pac-Man amiibo, like when you're driving, on the back of the helmet is Pac-Man, and he's eating, like he's chomping as you drive.
Oh.
I really don't use them in the games very much. My son uses them in the games a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really use them in the games. I more just kind of like them just because they're cool looking.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So, you know, I'll always, every once in a while, I'll just go out and I'll grab a bunch of different ones and switch them out on my desk so that I've just got new stuff to look at while I'm sitting here editing a podcast or streaming or whatever.
I gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense here. So yeah, I'm gonna put a link to his eBay listings for these things if he restocks. It doesn't look like I see any of them on there right now, but I'll message him before this goes up. And I just like that I can pack these away really easily in my bag. I've been able to just, you know, I can have like 20 of them in a nice little stack. I wrap them up or I put them in a folder, and they're there for me at work, which is, you know, pretty convenient. So I'll give the thumbs up to these little things here, and let me know if any of you guys pick any of these up. Have you been playing anything other than your little Zelda NES Classic run-through lately?
Yeah, I also have been playing Blaster Master Zero, and I gotta say, and I picked that game up the first week just so I would have something to play other than Zelda, just to try it out, but I haven't really paid much attention to it. And I'm having a lot of fun with that game. And I'm here to tell you that if you're playing with the Pro Controller, stop. Play it with the Joy-Cons, because the Pro Controller, while really good, the HD rumble is not as pronounced as it is in the Joy-Cons. And the HD rumble in Blaster Master Zero is really fantastic. You can tell the difference between when you jump or when you use a boost, or when you jump in or out of water, when you are in the top-down versions of the game or modes of the game. Sometimes water will be moving across the screen, and you can feel it move from one Joy-Con to the other. It's really well done, and I think that it's definitely the way to play, and it's kind of got me sold on HD Rumble. You know, Zelda didn't have HD Rumble, which I think was a mistake on Nintendo's part, because they really could have shown that off. HD Rumble is really cool, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how HD Rumble works in Splatoon. Although, come to think of it, I'll probably end up using the Pro Controller for Splatoon. I'll probably end up using the Pro Controller for ARMS. So I'm not sure about that now that I think about it. I wish the Pro Controller had better HD Rumble, honestly.
I feel like HD Rumble is the most underrated feature on the Switch right now, because it's not like a game-changing feature. It's not like the controls themselves or the motions or the different button configurations and stuff like that. But it really does add on games like this. People have almost universally said it's really just cool how it adds these little feelings as you're playing things. And sure, it doesn't change how the game is played, but it just kind of immerses you in a little, it's, you know, and you notice it. It's not like most games where the rumble is just like, oh, I can, you know, feel when time's running out, and it buzzes when this happens. You know, it's like actually matters in the gameplay in some way.
It was funny. I was playing Blaster Master, and I thought that I could hear the rumble. Like, I was using the Joy-Cons, and whenever I use the Joy-Cons, I don't know if I'm weird. You guys write in and let us know if I'm weird. Well, I'm weird, but if they're weird for this other reason. When I use the Joy-Cons separately, I almost never use the grip.
Okay.
I just use them in my hand, and I don't even use the straps. I just use them in my hand. I find them really, really comfortable to play like that, because I use kickstand mode a lot, way more than I thought that I would. And I thought that I could hear the rumble. And then I was like, I was trying to show my wife, I was like, honey, check this out. Okay, now jump out of the water and stuff. And she's doing it. And I was like, wait a second, I can't hear it anymore. I could only hear it when I was touching it. I don't understand how that works.
Like the sound travels through your bones or something.
Yeah, it's really strange. And I just got to say, Nintendo HD Rumble, you got to find a better way to market that, because Koizumi pouring ice cubes into a cup is not the best way to explain this.
Right.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Have you tried any of the DLC for Blaster Master yet?
Okay, so they had like a free... I don't know if it was permanent free or if it was just like, hey, try this for a week kind of thing. But they had one where it was like Azure Gunvolt guy.
Right, yes.
Who I don't know. I haven't played that game. And I played it a little bit, and it really does change the way that you play the game. I almost felt like I didn't need the tank.
Yes, that seems to be what the trailer showed. The trailer almost showed them exclusively just jumping out of the tank stage 1 and never using it again.
Yeah, which feels really weird, like not having the tank, because Blaster Master is all about the tank. You never want to be without Sophia. I'm to a point in the game now, minor spoilers, where I have to go underwater, and I can't really take the tank with me. And as I'm swimming, like, I'm 2 screens away from the tank, and I'm constantly thinking, okay, I got to make sure that I can find my way back to the tank, because I'm terrified that I'm going to lose it and have to start over. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yes. It is the heart and soul of your adventure in that game, and you just feel so vulnerable when you're not in it.
Right, yeah. If a monster looks at you like cross-eyed, you will fall over. Whereas with the tank, you could just look at that thing and be like, get out of my way.
Right. That's pretty cool.
So what have you been playing this week?
I was just finishing up my playing of Binding of Isaac Afterbirth on the Switch. I started this last week, and I kind of gave some initial impressions of it. And I'll just say I played it enough, I think, at this point. It's a game that I said it's got really good controls. It's a good twin stick shooter style game with lots of different enemies, lots of bosses, and every time you play it, things are shuffled around, and there's lots of different challenges, characters you could play with that have different abilities and stuff. But I'm kind of just done with the setting. It's not like I can see why people like this, and I could see if you're into this aesthetic of this game, of this really dark, evil, bloody, poop-filled world with just all these really creepy monsters you have to fight and this backstory, you would be willing to play this over and over. I have beaten it once. I've beaten it a couple of times. So you get through a certain number of stages, you fight the last boss, and you get an ending. And then you have to go through it, and there's like 20 or so different alternate endings you can try to unlock. But I just don't feel the urge to go through it that many more times. I just kind of found myself being like, yeah, I really hope I don't die on this stage, because, if I die, I have to start and do the 6, because I think you have to beat like 5 or 6 stages before you get an ending. And I just would be so frustrated, like, I died again. I just want to get another ending. I really didn't feel so motivated by the new stuff to want to play it that dedicatedly. So it is a good game. I give that to anyone. It is not that I'm not giving it a bad review. It's just that the world that you live in throughout the action of that game is just not one I feel like looking at that often. Like, you are fighting piles of poop and things that rip their chests open and shoot cartoon blood at you. And it's just only so much of that I can really take before I'm just, all right, let me go put back Zelda and look at some beautiful vistas again. Yeah,
I have the game for Steam. I got it like probably in a Humble Bundle or something like that. Yeah. Super cheap. And I have yet to play the game, because every time I look at it, I'm like, this is not a place that I want to go to.
Yeah, right.
It looks depressing and sad, and I don't want to do that. Now, my question to you is, are you a fan of roguelikes?
I'm not particularly. I like them, but I just don't. I like them to the point where I'll beat them once, or like, some roguelikes have an ending like that, and then I just don't feel like repeating, even with the, the randomization that they usually have. I usually don't feel like repeating the actions and like getting to that level of mastery of it, which is what drives people to play these games so much. It's why people have bought every version of Binding of Isaac that's come out throughout the years. And at $20, right. I think that's what its price tag is on the Switch.
It's actually $40 on the Switch.
Ah, okay. Well, there you go. Well, then maybe it's a little less worth it. I rented it. I didn't buy it. That's why I'm satisfied with it as a rental. Because that's actually perfect. I had it for a week. I played through it. I saw the story. I got to play some of the characters, and now I'm like, all right, send it back. So that's where I am with it. I'll happy rental, but not something I want to own.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So that's pretty much everything we've been playing. Let's not waste another second because we have a whole lot of E3 roundup to get to. So let's shift gears and get into the news rundown.
All right.
So we started off Nintendo Spotlight yesterday, and it's had a sizzle reel where they mixed in a few different games. And we saw a lot of games that we had expected to come out. But I think actually snuck inside of here was probably the first real surprise and maybe even a mediocre-sized bomb for the Nintendo lineup of the day. I think Rocket League was a pretty big thing just to kind of slide into the sizzle reel.
I think it's huge. Yeah. This is one of my favorite things of E3 this year, is Rocket League on the Switch. Have you played it before?
I have not actually played this game, but I'm surrounded by people who play it, and I get that this is a huge game. This is a pretty big bomb for a lot of people out there.
So I'm a teacher. And my students are done for the year except for testing. And we had, luckily, the last 2 days, no students. So I was sitting there watching with a buddy of mine. We were sitting there and watching the Nintendo Spotlight. And the little car zipped behind the Switch. And I light up. I was like, yes. And he's like, what is it? What is it? What is it? And I go, it's Rocket League. I'm calling it now. And then the car zips by and the ball falls down. And I was so excited. I got Rocket League for free when I bought my Steam controller. And I said earlier on the show, I am not a sports guy. Mm-hmm. I do not care about cars. I do not care about sports. None of that matters to me. So when I saw Rocket League, I was like, whatever, I don't care about that kind of thing. But I loaded it up because it was free and I tried it, and this is a game that everybody has to try at some point. It is incredibly fun, and I jumped in and started talking, and I stopped you from, I forced you to bury the lead here, and that's that they've got cross-platform play.
Yes.
This is insanity for Nintendo.
That is really huge. That is... I mean, yeah, right, exactly. That Nintendo alone it would do cross-platform play with, at least with PC and the Xbox versions of the game. Oddly,
not Sony.
Yeah, Sony decided we're not quite sure. They had one quote, and thank you, Dylan Hillian, for digging this one up for me because I was trying to find, and basically all day, people were giving me random quotes from, I think, made up sources, actually, or just like it was even gag accounts that were being quoted. Why, they're doing it because of an ancient feud with Nintendo and they don't want to do that. But the actual quote, it's certainly not a profound philosophical stance we have against this being crossplay. We've done it in the past. We are always open to conversations with any developer or publisher who wants to talk about it. Unfortunately, it's a commercial discussion between ourselves and other stakeholders, and I'm not going to get into the details on this in particular instance, and I can see your eyes rolling, he says.
I can see your eyes rolling.
Yes, and that's Jim Ryan.
Snarky.
Yeah, it's a little snarky. I mean, he does go on, he does mention something about it's, at least his surface excuse was like, well, we have our players and we do a lot to make sure our community is safe and friendly for our players. We don't know if the other systems are going to be able to adhere basically to our standards of family friendliness online. And it's like, come on, it's the Nintendo populace. I mean, okay, maybe PC. I don't know. Maybe PC. You don't know what you're getting into there. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's some bad stories about the Microsoft people. But you know what? I don't see anything that would makes the PlayStation populace better people who would do anything. Anything that you
untoward.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's not like there's censorship that they have to keep people from trolling each other on PlayStation. So it just seems like that's his token excuse or just something to throw up there for whatever true reason they have.
I personally think the true reason is that Sony is currently the market leader, and they don't get any benefit by allowing others to play in their pool. In addition, I can't find the link, but I read an article earlier that said that Xbox Live is actually going to be how you can, so for Minecraft, because, and so I guess I've gotten distracted here. Minecraft also has cross-platform play. That was announced at Microsoft's conference. And on the Switch, you will have to have an Xbox Live account in order to communicate with people who are on Minecraft on Xbox. Makes perfect sense. How else are they going to communicate, And that's not a big deal. That's a free account. It doesn't cost anything, so that's fine. But my guess is that Sony doesn't want that kind of thing happening with Minecraft, and because Rocket League has cross-platform play with the PC and Xbox. Wait, is Rocket League on Xbox?
I believe they said that is going to be on there as well.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so I think that Sony has a problem working with Xbox Live. I don't think that they want to work with Xbox Live. I think they want to keep everybody siloed. That's my guess anyway.
Yes, Psyonix actually even went on record and said they don't even know what the actual reasoning is. They said it's literally something we could do with a push of a button, metaphorically. He told Polygon Dunham, in reality, it's a web page with a checkbox on it. All we have to do is check that box and it would be up and running in less than an hour all over the world. That's all we need to do. It sounds like he also kind of hints that it might just be politics, kind of maybe what you originally said, that they're the market leader. They don't see a advantage to sharing it, even though it might be detrimental in the long run, because if you're someone who has more than one of these systems, you will more likely lean towards the version of the game that has a exponentially greater pool of opponents. If, this is a multiplayer game first and foremost, yes?
Oh, yeah. And so if you're on the PS4 and they're siloed all by themselves, you're going to have less people to play with than if you are playing on the Switch or the Xbox or the PC, because those people are all playing together. Although, no, PS4 is not by themselves, because I've played on the PC and I've played with people on PlayStation.
Ah, okay. All right.
It's a very weird, convoluted thing. Just can't everybody just get along?
I know. I mean, just so you can give an example, though, some people might not know what Rocket League is. Maybe you can give a very brief rundown of what the game actually is for people.
Okay. So it's actually a sequel. I don't know if you knew that,
did not.
But it's a sequel to a game called Super-Powered Acrobatic Rocket-Powered Battle Cars.
Nice.
And they changed that to Rocket League because they didn't want to add one more syllable to that. Basically, you are playing soccer with a giant soccer ball, and you drive into the soccer ball with your car. And it sounds incredibly stupid.
It does.
But it is so fun. These are jet-powered cars, so they can fly through the air and they can jump, and it is so fun.
Is it a one-on-one game, or are there options for more players at a time?
So you can do one-on-one, which is not fun at all.
Okay.
And I would never do that. You can do 2-on-2. You can do 2-on-2 basketball, You can do 2-on-2 hockey, 2-on-2 soccer. Then you can do 3-on-3 soccer and hockey. You can't do 3-on-3 basketball. And then you can do 4-on-4, which I've never done. They call it chaos mode.
Okay.
And I think the sweet spot is to play 3-on-3. 3-on-3 is really, really good. And then 2-on-2 basketball is phenomenally fun, but you're exercising very different gaming muscles when you are playing 2-on-2 basketball. You have to play differently. And so a lot of people get turned off by the basketball part because you got to go slower.
Are there different cars, or is it just like, standard cars, or like they're ones with different stats or different play styles?
There's no play styles, there's no stats. Every car behaves the same, but they look different.
Okay.
And you can unlock them through microtransactions, like you can get the Batmobile, or you can get the DeLorean, or I'm sure that they said that, and they did say that there's going to be certain carts that are exclusive to the Switch. I'm sure it'll be like Mario Kart themed things, like the B-Dasher or things like that.
And they showed off the Mario and Luigi hats that you could put on your cars.
Right, but all of that stuff is cosmetic, and so it doesn't actually affect the gameplay, and that's a very important point. Every car behaves the same way, so you can't pay to win.
Awesome. And they also noted, I believe this came up a little later, that they're shooting for, on the Switch, for it to be able to run at 720p and 60 frames per second on both docked and in portable mode.
And my guess is the reason why they're only doing 720p is because Rocket League was originally made in Unreal Engine 3, and Switch is Unreal Engine 4, so they've had to change things around in order to get it to run, and that might have been difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, Rocket League seems like a pretty straightforward, like, it's not like a graphically over-detailed game. It doesn't look like it needs something like super flashy. It's not like crazy explosions going on or anything like that. Or is there? Or is there something I'm missing?
No, well, although it's weird, you can look at replays.
Okay.
And when I zoom in on the replays, you can see individual blades of grass. So I don't know if the game is rendering all that nonsense when you're playing, because you're driving so fast you can't notice. But I just thought that was interesting. It feels like a CPU intensive game, and that might just be because it was running Unreal Engine 3. So I'm not sure how they ported it, if they actually rewrote the game in Unreal Engine 4. But if they did, hopefully they update it. And I think they're still running on DirectX 9, which and that doesn't really affect the Switch, but on PC it'd be better if they were upgraded to a higher DirectX, and I could be wrong about that.
All right, very cool.
It's coming out in winter, and if you don't have it, buy it, and we'll play together, and it'll be a blast. You're gonna love that.
A lot of people already in the chat were saying that this is going to be the next, like, another really big community game for us in this community and any other one that you might have of Switch players. So let's move on to something maybe a less dramatic reveal, or less big Obama. Maybe we could look at did you see the little Yoshi game that they showed off actually in the intro?
I did.
Yes. Now this one doesn't even have a full name, but I think I'm going to predict they're going to call it Yoshi's Flip Side. That's my working title for it. This looked kind of like in the style of or a Woolly World or Little Big Planet. It had that whole like handcrafted worlds kind of thing with like cardboard and little paper craft kind of backgrounds and stuff.
I do love the art direction in those games.
Yeah. It is pretty cool, and there's lots of little details, because the main premise of the game is that you're going through these stages, and you're Yoshi, and you get eggs, and you shoot things, and you throw your eggs at stuff, and you eat Shy Guys. But this trick on this one, it looks to be, is that you can play every stage two ways. You could play it from one perspective, the main forward perspective, or when you play it, you can flip around to the other side where you're seeing everything from kind of like the background.
Yeah, almost like Super Paper Mario.
Yeah, that's probably the closest comparison that you could think of, right? And being able to see things from the other side changes what you can do. Now you can see what's hiding behind this house maybe, or where there's coins hidden, and maybe you'll remember where stuff is. That when you play it in the other direction, now you can maybe bust down that wall that you saw was holding a treasure when you played it the other way. And, it was a little cool stuff. There was a co-op mode, which was pretty cool. So there was 2 players going through the stages at the same time, helping each other out and, boosting each other to things. Had a little bit of a snipper clipsy kind of feel to it there. Mm-hmm. And, it's Yoshi. Those are always fun. Lots of stupid stuff to find. And I just think that's really cool, that little gimmick of the playing the stages from two different perspectives to kind of get 1.5 stage out of all of them, basically, or give you a reason to go back a few times to explore and find out what tricks you can do if you remember what you saw through one playthrough.
Right. And in other Yoshi games, it's always kind of two-dimensional, where he's traveling back and forth sometimes, and they even showed him throwing eggs at an angle.
Yes.
You really have to watch the video to understand what I'm saying. I don't think I can really explain it very well.
Like he would throw it into the background or foreground.
Exactly. You did a great job explaining it.
Yeah, there's a lot of that depth. Even though it's a 2D game, you're playing with the third dimension. I thought it was really cute. In one of the playthroughs we saw, like, there was some of those like sliding platforms when you're playing it one way, and it would like be the like little platforms that would poke out of a building, and you'd have to jump on them, and you'd have to jump to the next one before your platform slides back in. But when you play that same section from the opposite side, you can see the little Shy Guys who pull the platforms in and out. And if you knock them out, the platforms stop moving back and forth, and they just like stay permanently out if you can take out the behind the scenes guys who are manipulating all those little things. It's pretty cool.
I predict that we're going to see this game on the 3DS as well.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense. Speaking of 3DS, we did have actually one 3DS game that I felt like was worth noting. I did think I was interested in the Metroid 2D game that they announced for 3DS. That was something that I predicted I did not think we were going to get a Metroid game. And they actually announced the Metroid game I wanted for 3DS. But but before that they announced the Metroid game that everybody else wanted.
I think that was a strategic announcement. If you look back to when Iwata-san had said, we're making games for mobile, he immediately had to say, but don't worry, we're also working on something called the NX, and we'll tell you about that later. That was a strategic announcement sent to be like, don't freak out, everybody. And so I think that them showing us Metroid Prime 4 was them saying, please don't freak out, everybody, because we're making a Metroid game for the 3DS, and I don't want you to panic when you see that, because that doesn't mean that we're not working on Metroid Prime.
Right.
So I feel like them showing that logo, that was just to reassure us. Because most of the time, I give companies a hard time if they just show a logo.
Yeah.
I don't like it when they just show a logo, but I totally get why Nintendo did that. They had to say, we're working on this. Put away your pitchforks. Put your torches out. Everybody calm down. Put your emails away. And we're just going to show you this DS game instead for now. And I think that the DS game looks really good.
Yeah, it does. I was a big fan of Samus Returns, the original Game Boy game that was based off Metroid 2 there. And I was playing that, like, black and white Game Boy. I still remember playing it with these weird peripheral. It was like a giant magnifying glass that goes over the screen to make it look.
And it had a light behind the magnifying glass too.
Right. Yeah. It gave it its own. It was like basically a peripheral backlight and bigger screen adapter. And that's how I had to play that game back then. And it was still it was a really great Metroid game with all the different mutations. And they didn't just remake it. They added a lot of cool features to that. We won't go in too much because it's a 3DS game, but I just think it looks like a really cool, it's the 2D Metroid game I definitely would love to play at some point. But I'm totally agree with you. I hate those, like when people freak out about, they showed a logo, Metroid Prime 4, that made my day. That was the entire presentation worth it. I'm just like, really? That's all they had to do? They just had to show a screen? How do you know it's even going to be good? I mean, it's like until you see something, I don't want to give them too much credit for that. But what you said makes perfect sense. They had to show it, and they showed it first to let them know we're working on this, so don't freak out when we show people a lot of stuff. That actually is a really good explanation for that. And it makes it a little more understandable. It makes me a little less grumpy about the logo trailer for Metroid Prime 4. which is coming in 2018.
Did it say 2018?
I believe it said 2018.
Oh, okay. Because my guess is that we would see it be heavily shown at E3 next year, and then we would probably get it early 2019. That's my guess.
Okay.
But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they actually said the date.
I mean, so you're a fan of the Metroid Prime series then?
Well, I played the first one. I loved the first one. I played the second one. I don't think I finished it. A lot of people said that it was one of the weaker ones, and then I never got around to playing the third one. I have them on the Wii U because I bought that thing because I'm a sucker. Not the Wii U. I mean, I bought the triple pack, but I'm not a huge fan of motion controls. And I really don't like the Wii remote. It was fine when it first came out, but it wore its welcome pretty quickly. And I really wish that I could just play those games using a regular controller like you could on the GameCube. And you can't. Yeah. And that's just disappointing to me.
Yeah. I'm just never been a FPS style player. I tried it out. I think it was a GameCube the first one was on.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I tried the first one out. It just, it never really sunk in with me as a game series I would get into. It was beautiful. It was great. But I wanted the 2D ones. I like the acrobatics. I like the dodging and battling like that. And I just really I was really hoping that the next big Switch one would be a return to that style, like Super Metroid style, 2D, large, lonely world to explore and, get your power-ups and fight in.
Well, if you really like that kind of game, then make sure that you pick up Axiom Verge when it comes to the Switch, because that's a very good game, and it's a Metroidvania style.
Yes, that is true, and it does take a lot of cues. Like, it looks like it's just trying to be as close to Metroid without, breaking any copyright laws. So what else do you want to hit up? What do you want to hit up next here?
Well, real quick, since we mentioned motion controls, how about Elder Scrolls?
Okay, very cool. So that was one thing I think that a lot of us were expecting to at least get some sort of confirmation here, and they did come out and said, "Yep, we're still working on this, and this will be coming to the Switch sometime soon."
It's definitely coming out this year, and so it also has amiibo functionality. You can tap your Link amiibo on there, and then you can. It looks like somebody's playing a dress up.
Yes.
with Link's clothes. It looks really bad, but it looks bad in a good way. Like I find it very funny, and I like it. I was really hoping that they would say that it has motion controls, but not the motion controls that they showed. So they showed that you can swing the Joy-Cons in order to swing the sword and the shield. And
Skyward
that
Sword
I'm not
style.
interested in. Right. I just wanted motion controls like Breath of the Wild had, where you can just tilt to aim your bow.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
Okay.
Now, it does look like that it has that. I'm hoping that there's a way for you to say yes to this and no to that, so to pick your own controls. And if there's not, then I won't get it. I've already bought Skyrim twice. It's a fantastic game, and if you haven't played it, there's no better system to play it on than the Switch, because if for no other reason, you have it with you. And I think that that's the reason I was able to get through so much Breath of the Wild, because that game is huge, and I could play it whether I was at my TV or not.
Have you beaten Breath of the Wild yet?
I have finished it. I've got about 100 hours in, and I've kind of put it to the side. And then, I mean, might as well segue real quick to the DLC packs, because they're coming.
Yes.
The DLC packs, I'm going to buy them. They look great, and I cannot wait. Like, there was, I think it was about a half an hour of footage of a couple of ladies on screen from Nintendo Treehouse going through the DLC stuff and showing off the Master Trials and the Trial of the Sword and that stuff. And it looks very compelling, and I'm very much looking forward to starting that game from scratch on hard mode and streaming it at my Twitch page. And just, it looks so good. And Zelda is such a great game. It is an absolute masterpiece. And as far as I'm concerned, it is the greatest game ever made.
No arguments here on that point. I mean, just the fact that this DLC gives you a reason, like you said, to play it over if you wanted to from scratch with this crazy extra difficult mode. It looked like in the trailer, we saw that scene where he alerted the guards, and that's always been meh. So I alerted some bokoblins where I am. You either just take them out or you go run away. But in here they showed it get alert, and then all those floating platforms came up, and they basically just ganked you there. And it's like, oh, I think it's going to be real problematic to be spotted in this version, and you're going to have to actually. It's always been an option. Do you just want to fight your way through a problem, or do you want to use finesse your way through a problem? I think fighting your way through a problem is going to be not a very wise decision in a lot of situations here.
Well, okay, so in the footage that I saw, they have upped their ability to see you. So they will notice you from further away. So it's going to be much more difficult for you to stealth and deal with things that way. So you may have no option. If you're bad at combat, you might really hate the Master Trials.
Or you're going to have to actually invest in that Sheikah outfit.
Right. Let's say that you don't want to do the Master Trials. They also have the Trial of the Sword, which is basically, it looks like just another way to progress your game in order to upgrade the Master Sword. And then there's the Hero's Path, which is really cool because what it works is it shows, or the way that it works is it shows your map, and it shows the trail that you have left behind. Like, okay, first I went here and then I went there. So you'll know where you haven't been. But the thing that blows me away is that they've been collecting this data the whole time. So as soon as you download it, you can see everything that you've done from before you've downloaded it too, up to 200 hours of gameplay. I think that's fantastic, and it's really going to help you track down those 900 Korok seeds.
Just knowing where I've been and where I haven't will be a huge, here's a gap of just, I never went up this mountain. Give me a good direction, because once you've covered, let's say 80% of the map, it's like not knowing what 20% you've skipped is going to be impossible.
That's right.
I think I like that idea. What I think it needs, it might be in there somewhere, or maybe there's something after you beat the game that lets you do this. The game definitely needs an option or a way to refight or some end game bosses, because powering up the whole Master Sword thing, and once I'm like maxed out, I want something to like test all these awesome powers against. And I guess the DLC itself gives you that with the trials and stuff, but I definitely am going to be hungry for things to use my new toys and powers on. And I'm kind of hoping that there is something either after the game to let you kind of flex your muscle on.
Well, I think that you're going to be disappointed, and here's why. The way that the Trial of the Sword works is, the way that the Master Sword works is when you're out in the world, it has a damage or a value of, I think it's
30 or 60 when you're by like Dark Forces of Ganon.
Exactly. 60 when you're going up against bosses, basically. The Trial of the Sword makes it so it's always 60.
Okay.
So when you're not going to be any better at fighting Ganon than you were before. You'll just be easier. It'll be easier for you to take out bokoblins and Lynels and things like that.
But I still think it would be nice if I mean, maybe in like the Champions Ballad DLC or stuff, when we get more stuff to fight, to use like all these cool things. Like having my Master Sword permanently at 60 is a pretty awesome buff. And just having something worthy to use that on is going to be, it's in and of itself going to be a challenge, because by then, you know, it's always that thing. It was that problem. You've beaten a game, and then you go and you get all the super items, like after a Final Fantasy game, and now you've beaten all the weapons. What do you do now with all the stuff you got from the weapons? You know, you want something really crazy to test it against. And I'm just hoping that the future DLCs give me something to sink that sword into.
Right, like when we get to the Champions Ballad.
Yeah, and so that trailer for the second DLC pack, I gotta say, it made me like very, even I've beaten all the sacred beasts, right? And I haven't done Ganon yet. I'm just kind of, I want to finish up all the side quests that I feel like doing, and basically at least exploring most of the world before I go take on that last challenge of the game. So I've met all the champions. I know their backstories, and I'm hunting down like the memories. And watching this trailer just made me feel like, I don't know, it made me feel a little weight on my heart. It was just like, oh, this is like their story. These are the guys that gave their lives, a century ago, and really made them feel like the stars of this plot line. And I don't know, it just kind of drew me in with that whole heartstring pulling.
I'm very excited for the DLC for Zelda, and here's my question to you. Do you think we get more DLC next year?
I think if this sells well, I think it will. I think that we could get a second season, basically. I mean, they did call it the Season Pass. I think that they have it in their, it's definitely an option on their table that if people buy this DLC, and I think they are, a lot of people seem to be, more people than I would expect in general to be buying DLC for games like this, are really into it. And they're always looking for more reasons to play Zelda. And yeah, I think there'll be a second season once this sells, and they're going to possibly give us another chunk of stuff to explore and fight. I don't know if they'll go so far as to give us like another piece of map or anything like that, or maybe they'll give us like an underworld where there's like a second map, maybe not as big as the first, but there could be a DLC where there's like an underworld to explore a little bit of.
Very cool.
And with that, they announced the amiibos for all 4 champions.
I want Rivali.
You want Rivali? Yes, he's pretty cool. Mifa is just adorable. I love Mifa, and I think that her amiibo is pretty cool too. All right, so we had a lot of good Zelda stuff there. Back to some lighter stuff. We got a quick glimpse. Really didn't go into too much. They showed us some Kirby. It was a 4-player Kirby. That's pretty cool. That's really couldn't see too much of the gameplay of it though. But people love Kirby, and it's one of my favorite platformers. I actually am a bigger Kirby fan than I am of Mario games. I've come over to his side.
I personally don't like Kirby games. Everybody says Kirby's Epic Yarn is amazing, so I went out and I bought it and I played it, and I was so bored. I was just so bored.
I gotcha. We also got. Oh wait, what about the Fire Emblem? We had the Fire Emblem Warriors. They showed off that. We got a little bit of a trailer, and then they had the tree house. They played it for a few hours that night. And are you a Fire Emblem guy?
First off, I've never even heard of Fire Emblem until Fire Emblem Awakening.
Okay.
And so that was the first one that I played. I really enjoyed it. I never beat it. Then the next one came out, Fire Emblem Fates. I played the first one. I never beat it. I really want to like the Fire Emblem games because whenever I see them, I'm like, oh, this game looks so great. And then I play it and I lose interest really quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason is because it's on the 3DS. And if it were on my Switch, then I could stream it and I would find it more enjoyable that way. I have trouble playing single-player games because MMOs, massively multiplayer games, have ruined me for single-player games.
See.
So being able to stream a game lets me make every game a multiplayer game, it feels like. And so Fire Emblem Warriors, or Fire Emblem just never really connects with me. And so that's why I was not interested in Echoes at all. Have you played any of the Warriors games before?
I am a big fan. I used to play, at least in the heyday where they made 17 just Dynasty Warrior games. I used to play almost all of those, and I loved that series for a while, but after a while it did get too repetitive and they just died out for me because they did literally make almost the same game like 7 or 8 times in a row. And they started branching out and they made like Gundam Warriors, Samurai Warriors, all these other kinds of ones. But it really clicked when they started doing something interesting, like Hyrule Warriors worked, and I thought it was really solid, especially as a 2-player co-op game. But when they even announced Fire Emblem Warriors, it clicked as in like, no, Zelda worked, and that was fun. It didn't always feel perfectly right as like a theme, because Zelda games have never really been about war. But Fire Emblem is, and that totally clicked. I was like, this is the theme. I mean, not only is it about war, there's the cast of characters that matters. And it's a cast of characters that we've been getting to learn not only through the more popular recent Fire Emblem games, but because of the mobile game that's even bringing back classic characters from, way back in the Game Boy Advance eras and such. So people are familiar with more of these faces, and now the Fire Emblem Warriors is another place to throw them all together. They've been focusing so far on the most recent one, the Fates pair of games, or the trilogy of games, actually. And you could see a lot of that. They brought up the Hoshido and the Norian, characters that everyone loves from those ones, and has that whole rivalry going. But yeah, it just works because the Warriors games definitely need a large cast of characters with different fighting styles, some excuse for there to be a battle, and actually Fire Emblem had a few mechanics that they showed that actually have a place in the Warriors game. I thought that was pretty cool. Like they have the weapon triangles. You're familiar with how that works? The weapon triangles in Fire Emblem?
Yes, I never remember the weapon triangle. So I never know which one beats which, but I know of it, and I just have to look it up every time.
I always just picture, the way I picture it is, I picture a lance being knocked away by an axe. I picture a swordsman outmaneuvering a clumsy axeman, and a spearman just kind of poking a swordsman away who can't do anything against the lance. It's just an image in my head that always recreates that rock, paper, scissors. But yeah, so in this one, they actually are focusing a little bit more on the strategy aspect. Usually in Warriors games, the only effect you have on the battle is where you go to kill enemies. And if you take out like gatekeepers, it stops the flow of enemies in certain areas, and then your guys take over. But in here, you actually can give orders to commanders and say, hey, I need you to attack this space and hold off the enemy here while I go and do this business over here. That's pretty cool. But you have to also take into account the weapon triangle. So maybe you have a unit of axemen that you want to make sure they're fighting the spearmen. There's also the pairing and the relationships mechanics, which is something else that came from the Fire Emblem games, where usually if you had characters fight side by side or support each other, they would have little like storylines that would grow, and eventually they'd get more powerful friendship bonuses from fighting together. And I think that all can work out pretty good. I'm curious what the plot is. They added a couple of new characters. It just feels like it almost feels similar in storyline to the iPhone game because it has the crossing of worlds. So I'm suspicious if this actually might have like a canonical tie to the iPhone game.
Yeah, they even kind of pointed that out when they were doing the Treehouse thing. They said it's kind of weird that we have these two characters in the same place because these two characters are essentially the same character.
Yes, right.
At different times, and I didn't know who they were talking about, but I was like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yes.
So maybe they have like some kind of time travel. Look for a DeLorean amiibo or a TARDIS amiibo in the future.
Well, they kind of had, at least in the. Have you played the iPhone one at all?
I played it a little bit. I tend not to play games on my phone very much. When I don't know why. There's so many good games that are on mobile, but I like buttons. I think.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't like not having buttons.
Totally. But yeah, so the iPhone game. I mean, all the recent Fire Emblem games have talked about, or even had characters going to basically a multiverse where it's like, there's an infinite number of alternate realities where perhaps you were a barber instead of a warrior, that kind of thing. And so I'm guessing
that should be the next, like, they should have Crom opening up a barber shop. That's the next Fire Emblem on mobile game where you got to do a time management game where you got to make sure you get, this guy wants a fade, but you got to really get that done fast because this lady wants to get a perm.
Fire Emblem, Scissors of Fury.
Nintendo, you better listen to me, Nintendo. and they could call it rock, paper, scissors.
I gotta say, though, Fire Emblem Warriors is actually probably the game I'm most anticipating of the E3 announcements. That's totally in my wheelhouse, and I'm most looking forward to play that. So even though it's probably very low on other people's priority lists, I'm a really hardcore Fire Emblem fan who really can't wait for that.
Honestly, just looking at it, watching the way that they've merged these two genres almost. It is this is the first of the Warriors games that I've been interested in trying, and it's probably the most excited I've been for a Fire Emblem game in a while.
Yeah.
So,
did you see?
Take those two things together. I'm pretty excited.
Did you see though in the Treehouse when they were playing with Xander who is one of the Norian characters, and he's a horseback fighter. He's a cavalier of sorts. But he's fighting, and he does like lots of attack combos, but his horse does all these crazy gymnastics as he's attacking. Like his horse does a backflip so that he can do a diving swoop attack with his sword and stuff.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's so awesome though that his combos involve his horse jumping and doing dancing in the sky and flipping around, and when he gets knocked back, him and his horse together. It's not like they're two units, they're separate. They're just one unit. And so him and his horse get thrown back, and they both fall down, and they both get up together. Like, it's just, he's like a centaur. I'm gonna say Xander is a centaur as far as I'm concerned.
Nice. And the game comes out, they didn't say anything officially, but I guess somebody took a screenshot of the Japanese eShop. And it says that it's coming out on September 28th.
Oh, okay.
This
Not
year.
too bad. Not too bad. Not too long ago. Oh yes, and a Chrom and Tiki amiibo, because people like Chrom, and Tiki's a cute green-haired girl. All right, so we also got Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I've never been a big follower of Xenoblades, but this is actually probably the most I've ever actually seen of the game, was some of the trailer and the treehouse they played of it. Was this something that you follow at all?
I don't follow it. I've played Xenoblade Chronicles. I've played Xenoblade Chronicles X. I'm interested in trying this out. Both of those games had combat issues that I didn't love, and this looked like it had slightly different combat, so I'm going to give it another shot.
Okay.
It's another one of those games that I really want to love, but I just haven't gotten sucked into yet. Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U drove me away with its horrendous music.
Oh yeah, really?
Oh my god! I'll find a link and I'll drop it in the Discord for you to listen to. It is atrocious.
Wow. Okay. All right. Definitely. I will maybe weave that into this episode then at some point so people can see what you're talking about there. Because that's a big deal.
You'll drive people
that
away.
is a big deal for a JRPG. I mean, they live off of their style, and music is a huge part of that, like inspiring the player to go through the story and selling the emotions of what's going on. So if they don't have good music, that hurts them usually more than most genres of game.
Yeah, and to be fair, it was the music in the main town where you were always in that main town, and so that's what drove me away. The rest of the game, you don't hear that music.
Yeah.
But there was this one song that made me want to just tear my ears off.
I love this aesthetic. I love future fantasy games or just anything like that. So I don't think this is going to be a high enough priority, though, that I will actually try it. So I'm not going to get too hyped for it. There's just too many other things that that stole my attention away. So what else okay, let's go into, all right. So one of the interesting, kind of similar, I feel, in the reasoning for this announcement was going back to when you said why they just showed the Metroid Prime logo just to let people know we're working on it. Don't freak out. I feel like they had that same problem actually happen with the Pokemon games. And we had that reveal. We had the Pokemon Direct just a week ago where they showed off the new Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And everyone was like, where's the Switch one? Why are you not working on a Switch one? This is, and people freaked out, and there were some very angry voices online about that. I think because they came on in the E3 and it was just, a developer talking. It was just him saying, just letting you know, we are working on a core Pokemon RPG for Nintendo Switch, and it will be coming someday. Like that. I think he had to do that just to get, just like what you said with Metroid Prime. He just had to say that so people will calm down and not be angry about Ultra.
In fact, I almost think that Nintendo had assumed that it would be okay for them to not mention, and this is almost a reaction to what the reaction was to them not saying anything about it, if that logic makes any sense.
Right, because it wasn't like produced. It wasn't even like a screenshot. It wasn't even a logo. It was just him in front of a camera saying a few things. Like it was just like they just threw this together a week ago.
So here's my prediction for next year. Next year at E3, we're going to see footage of Pokemon. We're going to see footage of Metroid. Pokemon has been coming out at Christmas time. I think that we're going to see Pokemon come out at Christmas time next year for the Switch, and then Metroid will follow up in 2019. Looking at the years, 2019, probably in February or March.
Okay.
That's my guess.
That doesn't sound too off. That sounds pretty reasonable there. I'm just really surprised after with everything. I feel like Pokken Tournament was the kind of game that would be a really big and awesome E3 announcement. And I feel like, I don't know, I assumed that they were just getting it out of the way before E3 because they had so many other really big things to show off. But kind of in retrospect, I was like, you know what? It really feels like something that would have been a nice thing to show there. But then again, I guess they had to announce in advance, now that I think about it, because they had the tournament there, and you can't have a tournament for a game that you didn't announce. So
that's true. I also think that the reason they announced it ahead of time is because it's a port of a Wii U game, and they want to get rid of that. They don't want that kind of stuff to overwhelm all of the other news that they're talking about, because you know how the internet is. The internet is incredibly negative all the time, and they're going to be like, I can't believe the Switch is all just ports all the time. Port.
I was watching, actually, though, the invitational tournament there, and I didn't even know. Are you familiar with Matt Pat, the game theory guy?
No.
Oh, he has a YouTube channel. He's one of my favorites. It's Game Theory, and he sort of spin off Film Theory, and they're just like basically teaching you science by trying to study things in video games, like how powerful would that moon dropping on the village in okay, I got you.
What's
the one I'm thinking of, the game, the Zelda Majora's Mask, like would that actually cause that much destruction, like that kind of thing. And he actually breaks down like physics of stuff, and but he was actually one of the contestants in the Pokken tournament here, him and a partner, and he actually was in the winning team. And he got to cool. And I was like, they just kept saying Matt Pat. I was like, oh, must be somebody else with the same kind of nickname as the YouTuber. And no, it was him, and I was very happy to see it. I was rooting. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I have someone I can actually root for, a guy I know and I kind of like. And it was a really epic fight all the way through. And they got to, like I said, part of their prize was they got to challenge some of the developers of the game there. And the developers gave them a sound thrashing to put them back in their place after winning a tournament. And I don't know, there was some things I didn't know about Pokken Tournament. I didn't know that it's actually has 2 phases of battle, in that you start out battling kind of like Power Stones, if you ever seen that game, that fighting series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like the battle actually starts out in this free form 3D run around shoot kind of thing, but then it switches depending on like who hits who with what, and then it goes into a more traditional duel mode, which is like standard fighting game stuff, but it could break out of that and go back into field mode every so often. I was like, I did not know that about this game, and I thought that was a really cool twist on a 3D fighter, like actually mixing 3D fighting with the 2D elements there, and some monsters are better at fighting in one form or the other, and it got me hyped. I was kind of not interested in playing Pokken Tournament before, but watching that tournament, watching the esports masters playing it, I'm pretty confident this is going to be a buy for me now.
Oh, I'm definitely picking it up. I think it looks great, and I really like the way that the game is definitely made in a way where you can just pop a Joy-Con off and share it with somebody. Yeah. And play side by side. That's right. They were talking about that, and the share the joy on any fighting game alone is just a must-have. And I think that I'm glad to see that they did whatever they had to do, or maybe the game wasn't that hard to adapt to. Share the joy. They didn't really have it. I looked at the original controller. It doesn't really have that many inputs.
Cool. So that's great.
Did you watch any of the other tournaments?
I did watch some of the Splatoon 2 tournament. I at least watched the first round of it.
I watched the last round of the Splatoon 2 tournament. I talked to multiple people, and multiple people who watched that tournament were kind of on the fence about Splatoon because they hadn't played it. Mm-hmm. And to a person, every single person said, after watching that tournament, I'm getting the game.
Awesome.
So I think Nintendo is doing a really good job selling their games with these tournaments. And the same thing with ARMS. I watched the ARMS one, and like it finished it was actually just finished right before you messaged me that we were going to start.
Okay.
And it was really, really fun to watch. Very high level play. I'm very much looking forward to ARMS and playing it on Friday. And that is a game that what Nintendo needs to do now, they have these possibilities for their esports. And what they need to do is they need to get big prize pools to attract people to play it, because if people are playing it, then people will stream it. If people are streaming it, then people are watching it. If people are watching it, then people will buy it.
That was the big thing. I said this last episode, and I was trying to rally people to watch these tournaments for just the reason you said there. I was like, a lot of us want these esports to take off. It's great to want to run and play these games, but you have to pay. Like this is the time to pay attention. Pros are playing right now. Let's put our eyes on this. Let's get excited and let's cheer it on to really drive home that there's an audience for this.
And I just want to give a complete props to the shoutcasters, the people commentators. They did a great job explaining why the players were doing the things that they were doing and making sure that the viewer was understanding the game. And they also were not screaming the whole time like that like quite often happens when I'm watching an esport game where they're just all screaming all the time. This was very thoughtful words that they were saying, and it was very fun to watch. And I think that Nintendo has the possibility of really making a dent in the esports world in the future.
Yes, they're clearly making the push. I really was drawn into this. I think it was lucky that they had they did a couple of those good like bio shorts on who the players were that were pretty good, and I was like, all right, I will pay attention for them in the future. And of course, Pat, like I said, being in the Pokken Tournament, probably a huge plus overall for that thing, giving me someone to root for. But yes, the commentators were great for that. I'll tell you, one of the things that drove me away from MOBAs for a while, when I would go to PAX East and they would have a tournament and I would start watching it, I would start trying to understand what, this is before I even played anything like Vainglory. I barely knew what a MOBA was. And I'm watching, and the announcer's just screaming at everything, and he's got him on the ropes. Oh my God, he does the no drop. I was just like, I'm walking away. I have no clue what you're saying. It felt a little immature to me. It's good to get excited, but getting freaked out and nuts, it's just too much for me. I think these guys had good energy. They had good energy. They said things that mattered to me, and they were professional while being still hyping me up into it.
I totally agree.
All right, so yeah, those tournaments, definitely something that was cool to check out today. That was pretty much all we had there today. So let's go into, one of the things that they brought up before even E3 started, but will be a good lead into our final topic here. We had the Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle game, which, as we mentioned, I think that was actually, they went into that day zero. So that actually was before Nintendo. That was an Ubisoft announcement, but it was actually probably the first thing we had buzz about for this whole E3 experience here. And I'll say there was at least 25% mixed reaction. 75% of people really dug this, and I was actually surprised. I feel like the 25% of people who were kind of meh on this were the XCOM strategy kind of players, like Final Fantasy Tactics fans. And my reaction actually was to this. I did not feel Mario and Rabbids is for XCOM, or it's not for Final Fantasy Tactics fans. It's for Final Fantasy Tactics Advance fans. It's a game that I think it's just trying to appeal with a little more fun and lightheartedness than those are very serious games where the world is on the line and people are dying and you're worried about politics. And if that drives you through those games, this might not be the strategy game to drive you. But I'm totally open to this. I like this combination of theme and strategy.
I will say that when I was watching the announcement, Miyamoto is up on the stage, and he calls out the creative developer or the creative director of the game who is sitting in the audience, and the dude was almost in tears. He was so proud of that moment. I mean, you gotta say, you gotta understand, this is definitely somebody who has their heart in the game. I think that this is a game that is going to have an insane amount of fun in it, and just that guy's reaction to seeing his hero call him out, you know that they've taken care when it comes to when it comes to the game. So I'm very much looking forward to it. But the one question that I have that I really, really want to know the answer to is there multiplayer so you can play against somebody? And if so, is it asynchronous so I can take a turn and then go and take another turn on another game that I'm playing with somebody else, and then go and take a third turn on a third game that I'm playing with somebody, and then I just got a notification on my mobile phone app that says that KC just took his turn in our game, so then I can go back and do that. That's the kind of thing that will keep people playing a game for a very long time, and I really hope that it's included.
I thought this was a great innovation in the turn-based strategy genre. Just the things you can do, like using warp zones and going into tunnels to show up in a different area, jumping off your allies, the way that they seamlessly move from running to like leaning against the wall and taking cover, blowing up cover with different attacks. I mean, everything just looked like an action game, but you're controlling it like a strategy game. And I think that's the thing that turns off a lot of people from strategy games, is that they just look too much like, all right, I'm moving pieces on a chessboard that sometimes animate. This animates like it's an action game, and it's doing everything it can to appeal to a lighter strategy. Like it'll probably have the meat and interesting things for someone like me who's like a really, strategy lover, but it's going to try to do things that make it appealing to the more casual, like a Mario fan who might be like, oh, you know what? I'll give this strategy game a try. It's got Mario. How hard can it be? And it'll probably teach them how to build them up with their knowledge of the game over time, because that's what Mario games do. They ease you in great learning curves until you're pulling off amazing stunts in battle that you're really impressed by, and they look good in actual action.
I totally agree.
I wonder what that little I missed what that little Roomba thing is that's following you around or leading your party.
No, yeah, it's leading the party. I don't really get what that is. That's like in XCOM, you just go from mission to mission. You don't have to go places. And I almost feel like this game would be better without that. But then again, I don't feel like when they first started showing that at the Ubisoft conference, I was like, okay, we see that they're all following this little vacuum cleaner. Why are we still watching them collect coins and do this? Let's get to the actual gameplay mechanics. It just seemed kind of weird.
I think it's a good break. Like, it's there probably to break the tension, because the strategy aspect, like, there's a lot of times where, like, I always say, like, Tactics is my favorite game probably of all time, Final Fantasy Tactics. And there was a lot of times where I just wanted to, I just had a really intense battle, right? And it's just like, woof, my mind needs to, like, take a break. And I enjoy just kind of, like, going to towns. Oh, I'm going to send some guys on a side quest. Maybe I'll go and talk to some people. Just need something like that. I think it's just there to kind of decompress your brain, relax you, and do something a little mindless before it throws you back into more mentally intense moments.
That's a good point.
All right, and so leading off from there, we got Mario and Rabbids, but then the big one, the actual Mario game that everyone's been talking about and waiting to see, Mario Odyssey, which was introduced in a rather interesting way.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, what did you think when you saw that T-Rex just walking onto the screen and all serious looking?
I thought it was Monster Hunter Worlds or Monster Hunter World, because they had showed like this Monster Hunter World for the PS4 and Xbox, and I was like, oh, okay, so they're bringing that to the Switch. I'm surprised because they've got Monster Hunter Double Cross coming. That really surprised me. And then when he turns and we see the hat, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is different.
Yes, very much so. So we knew the hat was a big deal with this game. Because from the little trailers we got to see before, we saw Mario throwing it. Kind of reminded me of the Minish Cap from the Zelda game, where it's just like, all right, here's his sidekick, and it's his weapon for this game. And then we saw Mario throw it and possess an enemy with it, apparently.
This is huge. And I know that there's these memes going around on the internet now where everybody's like, oh, Mario turns into a frog. What's the big deal? But... Mario games have a tendency to teach you a mechanic in a level, give you just enough time to master that mechanic, and then they take that mechanic away and teach you something new. And that's what I love about Mario games. And the capture mechanic it gives us that ability to really totally diversify the way that we play the game, because... Yeah. They can say, all right, well, this set of levels is filled with bullet bills, and you're going to have to deal with learning how to be a bullet bill as you move from one place to the next. And then in the next level, no bullet bills. So now you're not going to be using that. You're going to be using some other thing where you turn into a Goomba or a frog or whatever it is. I think that the capture mechanic is really, really clever.
I saw one of the treehouse stages I watched them playing was... he was taking over like a Mawai statue, kind of like an Easter Island head thing. And that changed up the gameplay in an interesting way in that, so it has these shades that let you see where there's hidden platforms to walk on and stuff like that. But while you're the Moai statue, you can't jump because it's just a big rock. So it takes away his most core ability of jumping. But they've designed this level where it's like, okay, now let's take away something, which can be just as interesting as giving you a new power sometimes. And now you're trying to switch between looking through its shades and seeing where the hidden things are, or just paying attention. Actually, they would leave hints if you didn't want to use the shades. Maybe you still wanted to be able to jump. Sometimes where there were invisible platforms, you would just see birds sitting in the middle of the air. And you'd be like, those birds are standing on a platform. I'm going to use my wits instead of having to take over this Moai statue there. It was a cool, just an ability that makes the stage different, or you can try the hard mode and just walk over things while they're invisible using your wits to beat them. And that kind of multiple ways to address challenges. I could see other things where there's like, here's 3 enemies on the stage. Each one of these enemies has an ability that can help you beat this challenge. Which one is for you? Which style, appeals to you, or is obvious to you even?
I really liked the way that Mario can go into warp pipes and then become 2D 8-bit Mario on a wall. Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
That is really clever. That is, just bringing back the classic gameplay for, just little short bits of it. So wait, I wasn't 100% sure I caught the storyline, but it looked like, again, Bowser kidnapping the princess, but it was something with like a group that, like an evil wedding planning group.
Yeah, it was. Story's never really been Nintendo's strong point in Mario games anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's
right.
Peach is the MacGuffin, and you got to get to her, and that's all there is to it. I guess that doesn't really matter to me.
It doesn't, but it does at least mean that the bosses aren't just the Koopa kids again. Like they were.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's the only real point of there that made a difference in that was that there were these new cast of characters that are the things you're fighting, which was it's I think that's a nice spice. I don't even think I saw Bowser Jr. in this whole thing, so it's a little bit of a fresh. Almost a reboot for the franchise here with just Bowser, Peach, Mario, and some other mini bosses and a whole new ability set to learn. And the hats, and the open world nature of it. Just running around New Donk City, going to different worlds that have their own problems, buying stuff, being able to use the gold coins to buy custom outfits for Mario. I thought that's pretty cool.
You think we're going to get a Sombrero Mario amiibo?
Ooh.
because I want one of those.
That seems almost too good not to make.
I want a sombrero or poncho Mario amiibo because I thought that looked really cool.
And it fits. He's got the mustache for it and everything. All right. Okay. This is interesting. So the music, that catchy, I thought was a pretty catchy vocal, upbeat ragtime kind of theme song for it. You did not care for it.
Well, I'm being a little, I was being a little, joking in the show notes. You
Okay.
you had wrote love that music. I wrote hate that music. I don't really hate the music. I don't feel like singing should be in a Mario game.
Okay.
I like the
can respect
music
that.
outside of Mario, but when they had the singing, it just totally I was like, what the heck is this? It's so weird. It's very odd.
No, I get it. I can see why you would feel that way. I only think that it only fits because so much of the game is breaking from a lot of the old Mario ways and just kind of really, like I said, reinventing itself. Like just the fact that there's human-shaped people in that New Donk City almost makes me feel like the singing comes from that world almost. Like it's like the real world somehow is seeped into Mario's world, which is why there's actual voices and singing.
Right, which makes me ask, if Mario isn't human, what the heck is he?
Right, it is weird. I did also like this, like another little throwback thing is that Pauline is mentioned in the game. And
That I love that.
yes, and she's actually the mayor of New Donk City. And
for those of you who don't know who Pauline is, she is the lady that Donkey Kong kidnaps in Donkey Kong, the original game.
Yes. So yeah, they're really going for the obscure references at this point. I'd say that's pretty good. A little good. That's a pretty good throwback to put in there. And there's also the two types of, speaking of the money, with their head on it, all the worlds you visit have two types of money. You have the gold coins, which are kind of your universal currency, but everywhere has their own special currency that can only be used in that world to buy things. And your gold coins are your lives in this game. So every time you die, you just pay 10 gold coins, which is pretty cool. I mean, who cared about lives before? Just, you stock up on money, and that's it. 10 coins every time you die. No real punishment for dying.
Right. And I I like games that don't punish you for dying. I think that that's a good thing because, dying is already punishment enough. I failed.
Right.
Don't punish me for failing. Just let me try again. And I like that they're just taking away 10 coins. It's not a big deal. Just maybe you got to take a little bit longer to buy that explorer's hat.
Yeah, right, exactly. Pretty cool. And you, was there any of these little points that you linked me to that you want to bring up while we're here?
Yeah, there's one that there's a link to Time Magazine, and Time Magazine has written in there, and there's auto-playing video in there, which I hate, so knock it off, Time Magazine. But it says that it has multiplayer, but Nintendo's not talking about it yet. This is coming from Motokura. He says, this is a game for the Nintendo Switch, so probably reacting to a question about multiplayer possibilities, but I'm afraid we can't share anything about that today. So, again, Nintendo has been heavily focusing on multiplayer on the Switch, so what does that mean? Does that mean that we're going to get multiplayer kind of like we did in Galaxy, where you had little brother mode that was waving the thing around collecting stars, or is it going to be Mario and Luigi on the screen together? I don't know. I just think that that's interesting.
I mean, a lot of people were split on the Galaxy. I was in the fan. I thought the way they did multiplayer in Galaxy was cool because it didn't interfere with the way the stages were designed. It didn't interfere with the way the game was played. It just gave you basically an extra ability that your second player is controlling by, shooting things and waving the wand around. But I think I'm getting the feeling that people are hoping that there's an actual other character that can interact and play on the screen. Kind of like the Lego games where there's always the second player who can just help you out and travels with you. What are you leaning towards? What do you think, or what are you hoping they do with it?
I think I'll be okay either way because Nintendo's going to find a way to do a good job either way. I don't think I've ever been really let down by a mainline Mario game. So whatever they decide, I'm looking forward to October 27th.
Here's my shot in the dark idea what it could be. The second player controls the hat, and it can hover around within a certain vicinity of Mario, wherever he is, and just maybe basically controls the hat as a weapon / second person on the screen who can walk around and do his own little attacks with Mario. But he's not touching the ground, so it's not like he can fall down holes. It's not like he can worry about dying in that way. He's just this floating thing that has its own little attacks to back up Mario.
That's cool. Yeah. Makes sense.
Shot in the dark. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, what else about the game? Was there anything else? I mean, this was the big one. I mean, I was actually pretty surprised by how big the worlds were. This is not the N64 game. This is not very isolated areas. Some of these worlds you go to are pretty big, and you would even have to get modes of transportation to take you where you want to go across the place. I thought it was really cool. They showed, the Jaxi in the frozen desert world, and you pay some coins and you ride this little dog sphinx thing. But it's crazy.
Right.
Yeah, but it goes out of control. It's so fast and wild, you can't control it totally. And Mario's just barely holding on to it. And you can't even stop it. You can maybe slow it down for a second. But it's just this wild dog that you just ride across the desert super fast and invincible. But it's just you can barely control it. It's just really hilarious and a really cool addition there. I think that's fun.
I think the only other thing that I want to say about it is the outfits that Mario wears. Those have all been in games before.
Yeah.
So there's a red, white, and blue pinstripe thing that Mario's wearing that is from a Mario Golf game. The sombrero is from a Game Boy game. And so I love these callbacks, these obscure callbacks to previous games. I think that Nintendo is on the right track, and Koizumi, who is I think he's the guy who's in charge of this particular game. I think that we're in good hands.
Yeah. Honestly, all those outfits, that is a great way to make coins matter again. Because honestly, we only collect coins 90% because it's just ingrained in our brain. It's just a satisfying action to do. But no one really cares about them. You can have infinite lives in these games, usually at the drop of it, or just focus on some trick or whatever. But having something to spend them on now and actually get something cool out of it will make collecting coins feel a lot more rewarding. And if you do some crazy acrobatics and you reach that spot and you open up a block that has 50 coins in it, it'll actually be oh, cool, I'm glad I did that. 50 coins is enough to buy that new fireman's hat I wanted to get Mario. Perfect. It's I think that's a pretty big addition to the game that I think will make everything just more enjoyable.
Yeah, and actually I almost forgot about this one other thing. I talked about it on my show. This is really interesting. When so there was the leaning tower that there was a moon on top of, and they went over and collected that. Do you remember seeing that?
I remember him collecting one of the moons in one of the stages, yeah.
So it said on the screen when he collected it, or she, I can't remember who was playing, but it said, collected the coin from the Leaning Tower, and then it gave it a date stamp. Oh. Almost like an achievement. So I wonder if there is a list of achievements that you can... And for me, I don't really care about achievements all that much, but I know for a lot of people, achievements are a big deal. And having a list of things that you need to go do, I think that is very compelling. And I found it very interesting that it had a little date stamp on it when they collected it. It said June 13th, 2017.
Yeah, very cool. That's something we haven't really gotten on Nintendo games before. But achievements it's just a staple of systems these days. So it would be really great. And it would just give more content to do. More reasons for people not to care about, like Zelda. Beating the game is barely the achievement you want. You don't care, beating the game is just something you'll do at some point because you feel like you have to. What you really care about is just digging up all those nooks and crannies and spending 200 hours finding everything you can and accomplishing every little cool, fun achievement you can. All right, that's everything, at least all the major things that we could have time to talk about here that we did get. But honestly, there was quite a few little things that did not come up, or at least weren't confirmed, that I think are equally worth talking about for at least a minute. And I think
definitely
not the least of which is that they announced Monster Hunter World for basically everybody else but Switch. Okay.
Yep.
All right, whatever. That's basically the open world, almost an MMO Monster Hunter. But the bigger one that really kind of stung is, and you might read this not so badly. Maybe you'll read this less damningly than some people did, but there's the tweet that they gave out that Capcom said, just to clarify, our official response is we have not announced any plans to localize Monster Hunter Double Cross at this time. Now, does that mean they are just going to do it later on? Or does that mean they don't have any plans? We haven't started working on this, and we probably won't bring Monster Hunter Double Cross to the Western or, English-speaking Switch.
I don't know, man. Your guess is as good as mine. I think it sucks that they're not. If they don't bring it over, there's going to be a whole lot of people disappointed. I mean, just look at the stock price of Nintendo and Capcom when they announced Monster Hunter Double Cross for the Switch. Mm-hmm. It went up a lot. Like, it was a big deal. And so for them to just say, well, we're not going to bring it to the West, I think that's a big mistake. Now, at the same time, Monster Hunter is not nearly as big in the West as it is in Japan. I mean, It is huge in Japan. Here, it's not nearly as big. And so I can understand why they might say, well, it's not worth the money to do. And localization is not just about translating, because the amount of space that kanji take up compared to the amount of space that Latin letters take up, it really changes the way that the game works sometimes, because you got 14 different screens to get through a piece of information that is like one line on a Japanese screen. So I don't know. I think it's bad if they don't, but I'm more stung by the fact that they're not bringing Worlds to the Switch, or that they didn't announce it.
Anyway, I also wanted to just read some of the comments people have left in our Facebook group regarding this here. James D. Deere wrote, boycott Capcom until they make this right. They've abandoned the fans that made it popular in the West. Don't buy anything from Capcom. Andrew Lee, a little more just complacent. That's too bad. I was considering giving the Monster Hunter franchise a try.
I'm right in there with Andrew Lee. I've never tried one of them, so.
Yeah. And Tracy Pate.
Here, I'll do a dramatic reading of it.
Okay.
I was seething about this last night, and I still am.
That's probably her voice, I'll tell you that. No. Look, again, it's possible this is something they're going to do, but honestly, I'm thinking the odds are very low if they don't announce it here that they're even planning on it. It seems very low that they're planning to actually do anything soon with this. And that's a huge letdown because yes, we've been working very hard, Monster Hunter fans, to make the series more viable and popular in the West, and we were always looking to spread the love and get more people into it. But when they don't bring this one over on what's probably the most social system out there, the one that people are getting together and doing actual in-person meetups for, this is the system to spread Monster Hunter with. And I don't know. It just feels wrong that's not coming here.
I'm going to make a prediction.
Yeah.
So Monster Hunter Double Cross will come out in Japan, and a year later it'll come out in the U.S., and it will come with a special U.S.-only Switch, and all the people who imported the Japanese version are going to be super angry because they got this one version, and then they're going to buy another. They'll buy another one.
Granted, now, yes, you can probably play the import version and just not care, because, like, Monster Hunter is not a plot-heavy game. You'll have to learn, like, you'll probably have to use a reference sheet, like, which weapon has this ability, what am I crafting here, that kind of stuff. But I think there's going to be a decent number of people who are going to probably just play this on import and just to heck with the language barrier.
Especially since it's region free.
Yeah, once you get into the action and you know, the iconography is pretty good. Like, you know, this is a potion, this is a mega potion, and this sword does this. And once you kind of get into that, I can see it not being a huge barrier. It's just going to be annoying managing, like, your village stuff and getting, you know, building up your beehives and collecting your resources kind of thing. But yes, very disappointing. I'm not really one for boycotts, but I do think it is important to send a message to Capcom that this is something you want. I don't know. I don't know what I feel about boycotts.
Boycotting doesn't really send a real message to Capcom. So let me here's what it looks like from Capcom. Let's say that Capcom makes game Y. You really want game Y on your system. They don't make game, or they also make game X, which you were kind of interested in, but you decide to boycott it because you're mad that they're not bringing game Y to the US. To Capcom, it just looks like nobody likes game X.
Right.
They don't understand that you're mad about game Y. So I don't think that that's really the best way to do it. I think the best way to do it is to send them mail.
Yeah.
Like actual write a letter.
Yeah.
That will really get their attention.
And none of that email petition stuff. All right. Everyone will just delete
Nobody
that.
cares about that.
And what was that? Change.org? Don't do that change.org thing.
And don't be a jerk when you send the mail.
Right.
Be nice. Because if you're a jerk, they're just going to throw it away. But if you're nice, they might be like, you know, whoever's in charge, maybe we should look at this because we've got like 500 letters a day for the past 2 weeks about bringing the game to the West.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Here's how I'd worth it. Dear Captain Commando, or actually look up someone's name that you're addressing this to. I am very disgruntled at your decision not to bring Monster Hunter to the West. I really think this is a good opportunity, and there's many of us in the community that would like to spread the joy of Monster Hunter through the Switch. We have all these communities of people who love playing games together, and they have been a success for ARMS, for Splatoon, for Mario Kart. We would like to see a third party as capable as you to join in and show all of us and the other third party companies out there that this is not just a platform for great social Nintendo games. It is a platform that any company can create a thriving community on. Boom. Copy paste that.
Here.
Copy paste that somehow. Just do it. And then, yeah.
Can you guys tell he's a writer?
Thank you. Beyond Good and Evil 2, actually, this is something that I think we got a hint about before E3 that might be coming to the Switch, but they actually said that they have not confirmed any of the platforms it's coming to. Just the fact that it's confirmed to exist, though, is enough to make a lot of people, like, jump for joy.
Yeah, they showed a video. I can't remember which press conference it was, but they showed a video of it, and I was like, okay, I never played the first one, so I don't have any attachment to this, but I know a lot of people were very excited.
Yes, so we don't know what it's coming for, but I think it's still a pretty good chance when they announce consoles that it will be Switch included, but we'll only have to hope for that one. Yeah, we didn't get any of the explanation about the online features or the app or the voice chat features. I thought that might come up during the Splatoon tournament even. Maybe they would talk a little bit more about the voice chat options there, but they didn't, and we still don't know anything about the paid service and what it's going to pertain to.
I think that we're going to be getting a Nintendo Direct on the voice chat probably. Let's see, what's the release date of Splatoon? Do you know? It's 3 weeks, right?
Yes, about.
Okay, so I'm going to guess in 2 weeks we're going to get another Nintendo Direct where they're talking about how the app works.
Yeah.
They still won't tell us about the the other parts of it. But I think that in 2 weeks we'll get that.
We didn't get anything about Animal Crossing. I thought we might at least hear a little bit about the app version of it, but maybe they'll have another direct that's just about their like iPhone releases in the future to update that, because they did also mention there was a Zelda game coming to iPhone in the sometime in the future.
Well, they didn't mention it. It was just rumored, I believe.
That's true. No virtual console info. I don't think that's going to come out on the last day. That was one of the things we thought. We both kind of said that we think that'll get its own direct as well. So maybe that'll be a month from now. Who knows?
Honestly, I think virtual console, we're not going to get a direct until fall.
I guess at this point, if it didn't come out, and that was one of the things I was thinking about when I said that the Switch showing at E3 was strong, but there were no bombs for me. I feel like the virtual console would have qualified as an epic enough level bomb to reveal to really put a accent or an exclamation point at the end of their presentation.
Speaking of old games, we also didn't hear anything about the Super NES Classic.
Oh, right, yes.
that rumor that may or may not exist. So,
and yes, there was that also little mention that Pikmin 4 is coming. They're working on it.
And that was Miyamoto was being interviewed by Eurogamer, and he says he just says it is progressing, but we can't share anything. Actually, he says, I've been told not to share anything about this from PR. So that really makes me laugh.
Now that's funny because
poor Miyamoto, he's got his hands tied.
That's very telling, because that basically means like, I want to say something, but they won't let me. This is the only thing I could say, is that I'm acknowledging its existence by saying I can't say anything about it.
He's like, I'm just lucky they let me out, man.
Mm-hmm, right. Oh, and what was this little point you said about what is Retro Studios working on?
Well, Retro Studios isn't working on Metroid, apparently. So producer Kensuke Tanabe has stated that he's leading a talented new development team. Tanabe acted as producer in the first 3 Prime games. So Retro's working on something else, and we don't know what. And I hope I'm hoping that it's something brand new.
That would be great. I mean, was there anything else that you really felt you were expecting, at least that you're disappointed didn't come up, or that you're hopeful might come up in the near future?
Not really. I feel like I think that they had a good E3. They didn't have a bad E3. I know that a lot of people, they look at the rumor mill, they get incredibly excited and hyped for what the rumor mill is saying, and then they inevitably get disappointed by what actually happens. And I just think that people need to remember to temper their expectations with a little dose of reality once in a while.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the Treehouse this year. I think following along with some of these games in depth really brought them alive to me. I thought the esports presentations were a great hype. I think you have to look at this E3 not as here's a place where Nintendo announces everything. It's just a place to get hyped about the games, whether you knew they were coming or not. Get a deeper look finally, rather than maybe seeing just a trailer here or there. Like, where else are you going to get to watch like 45 minutes of gameplay of a game that's not coming out for, another 6 months to a year? I think that's what we really just got to take out of this and change. Yeah, like you said, change our expectations of E3, because Nintendo, and I think eventually others will follow, is starting to mute its volume level there and make it more about the celebration of what we know, and then let the big announcements come when because like, what's better, having a day off from school that you know about, or waking up and it's a snow day and you didn't know you had off? But that's what the announcements are throughout the year. They're snow days. You didn't know they were coming, and then your life is changed because Smash came to you one random Thursday.
That's right. So watch Twitter for those weird Mario coming out at you from behind a curtain.
Right.
I will say, I just remembered one thing that I'm disappointed that we didn't get, and that is Nintendo World Championship. They did it last year. It was awesome to see the Nintendo World Championship brought back, and I wish that they had done it again. I know that they had 3 tournaments, but the Nintendo World Championship, where they play a bunch of different games, I think that that's so much more compelling.
Yeah, that's got just like Olympiad kind of feel to it. I think they were focusing on they've been making a big push for the esports because that's something that everyone can kind of participate in and people like to focus. And as fun as like those Nintendo Olympics kind of things are, they probably don't make good esports material.
I suppose that's true.
That's true,
and they are trying to focus on the esports side of things,
right? Because I mean, like when people get really good, like when you have a really strong base of people who are good at one game, then you could add the decathlon. Once we have people who are good at the pole vault, and then people who are good at the shot put, then you can make one game that's just the competition of all 10 things.
Right.
All right.
That makes sense.
All right. So let's just go and close things out with, let me first go with we have the 2 new releases coming out this week. ARMS, which is coming out the 16th, which is tomorrow by the time this posts. And we have the Cave Story coming out the 20th. All right, let's close out this show with the Community Pulse, because there's a lot of opinions, but we'll just kind of let you people air your grievances and squeeze of joy before we close up shop.
All right, Hermes de los Santos, hopefully I didn't butcher your name,
That
sir.
is exactly how you say his name.
Oh, nice. He says, I'm hoping that someday they can let us play 100 years before the Calamity as DLC. At least that's what my uncle who works for Nintendo thinks that they should do. I totally agree with your uncle who works for Nintendo. We all have an uncle who works for Nintendo, and it's amazing how many of us have uncles that work for Nintendo. But that would be super fun to play through, even knowing what happens. I think that it would be a lot of fun to see that world and to go around with those characters. I love Rivali.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, that's actually great because knowing the ending just adds such an interesting somber tone to it all. Knowing that, like, I guess minor spoiler, but it's one of the most basic elements of the game, is that these characters all die before the game starts. And it's that sacrifice that makes Link's journey in Breath of the Wild possible. So just kind of knowing that would add such an interesting and a macabre flavor to the game right off the bat that I think would be really unique in the Zelda series. Dave McLaughlin, he actually brought up a question we've been tinkering with today. The core Pokemon RPG that's in development. Can we seriously think this is the next generation, or will it be an upgrade of a previous title like Diamond and Pearl, since it looks to have a development cycle of about 2 years? I think, honestly, ever since Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were announced, I don't think they're going to make another upgraded version of the Alolan region games. I think that's done at this way. They've made 2 versions of it now. I think that after that time, it will have to be, and to make that level of impact that it needs to at this point on the Switch, it will be the next generation.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be very, very unhappy if it's just a game that we've already played. Mm-hmm. Even though people will end up buying it because people buy every Pokemon game.
Right.
I don't think that they're going to do that. But also, just so you know, he says it looks like it has a development cycle of about 2 years. We don't know how long they've been working on this. Like, Mario+Rabbids has already been in development for 3 years. So it's not like they wait until the system's out before they start working on it. They've probably been working on this stuff for a while.
Yeah, right. I agree. I just think that the regions usually reflect something about that generation. And I think that they're going to do something special with the next region to reflect what the Switch is. I can't really say what I think that means yet. I just feel that the inspiration for whatever the region is, maybe the region will be, I don't know, like more like the world entirely, where it's people traveling, more about like people traveling across or the internet. I don't know. Just something I feel that they'll do different to really put an emphasis that this is the first console core Pokemon game. You know, I think that's all I can say. I'm being very vague, but I guess I just don't know how it'll solidify in their brains yet. Any others for you?
There's a lot of people excited for Metroid Prime 4.
Yes, I would say that almost 4 or 5 people will repeat the same thing. Metroid Prime 4, exclamation points, booyah, it was worth it. I'm jumping out of my chair at work, lol. Yeah, I mean, I would say that was about half of the comments were just people hyped about that. All right, well, I think that's it. We've gone very long here, and I mean, you have done a very fine job filling very big shoes on what is possibly one of the biggest episodes we would have to talk about in the year. So I really thank you a lot, Bill, or as I will always know you as RJS, and it was a pleasure talking with you for this past couple hours.
Oh, it was a blast. I had a lot of fun. So thank you very much for inviting me.
And any last plugs you want to make for your shows or websites?
If you're looking for, I do Switch or Nintendo stuff 3 times a week. You can just find that at SwitchCraft, basically like witchcraft. It's the one with the witch's cauldron as the icon. If you're looking for that, you can just go to runjumpstomp.com/listen. And you can subscribe to it there. And if you want to watch my live streams and come fight me in arms on Friday, then, come at me, bro. And you can find me at twitch.tv/RunJumpStomp. And we'll have a fun time knocking each other out.
And it's your wife who made the dock socks that we got?
That's right. I can't believe that I almost forgot that. She would absolutely murder me. Yes, my wife makes Nintendo Switch dock socks to really class up your Switch. Now, some people say that they protect your Switch. I don't say that. I say that they just make your dock look cool underneath your TV. And she also makes zippered pouches that... Like right now, I use it to store all my wires in when I go places. So like if I have to charge my phone, because I have an Anker battery, and so if I want to charge my phone or my iPad or my Switch, I have all those wires in there. My son carries AMIIBO in the zippered pouch around with him. And if you're interested in any of that stuff, just go to etsy.com/shop/RunJumpStomp.
And we'll put all those links in the show notes as well.
Exactly.
Yes. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. And also, guys, as always, if you like the show and you want to see us do more, we really are making a new push for more Patreon backers. We have gotten a lot of support, and we want to kick to the next level. We're just shy of hitting another goal so we can actually start doing some more video work here. So visit patreon.com/theswitchcast, and just for those who don't know, that's where you go and you can pledge $1, $5, $20 a month, whatever you're comfortable with, to help the show out, and you'll get some little rewards for your help. Also, iTunes reviews are huge. You can give RJS's podcast a listen and then give them a review. And since you already listened to this one, you can give us a review right now and help us get higher on the rankings. And you can email me, Casey@theswitchcast.com, Twitter @theswitchcast, Facebook group, Instagram, whole bunch of ways to enjoy us, and of course the Discord chat. Thank you, Essa, for the music, and until next time, everybody,
switch it up.